because if you back up to the 1950s and 60s, if you ask teachers, what are the biggest problems that you're facing in school and in class? The answer from teachers in the 1950s and 60s were the biggest problems they had in school were kids chewing gum and talking in class. Those were the issues, right?
Wow.
Well, if you get to the 1970s and 80s, all of a sudden now you have violent crime that's erupted in public school. You have teen pregnancies. You have STDs. You have drugs. A significant and drastic turn that took place. And my dad began to ask some logical questions of what changed. And interestingly, if you go back and study in the educational cycle and in public schools, where did that change happen? There was a flat line from all these moral behaviors, and flat lines are a little relative. There was a slight increase, but it was less than the population increase, right? So it's below the population increase, but basically, like, you have this flat plane, but in 1963, it jumps like hundreds of percent and just skyrockets. In 1962 and 63 is when the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that prayer was no longer allowed in public school and the Bible was no longer allowed in public school because they said it violates the separation of church and state and you can't have those things there. Well, over the next couple of decades, and for example, in violent crime, there was a 664% increase in violent crime in public schools. Now, why would that be? Well, maybe because if there is no God, right, and all of a sudden, well, then we determine for ourselves what's right. Because if there's no God, there's no biblical standard, there's no 10 commandments, right? There's no thou shalt not kill. Well, then who determines what's right and wrong? And this is the challenge that has really unfolded in public schools since then, is we've moved away from an objective moral standard of behavior. And now kids don't know what's right and wrong. They don't know what's true. They don't even know what's a boy and a girl anymore because there is no objective standard for truth and morality. All that to say, this laid the groundwork and foundation for my dad to look and say, okay, we recognize that the walls of the spiritual, right, the metaphorical walls